Hey guys, this is the Saints Row Got Out of Hell commentary. Now y'all saw the first commentary about Saints Row, which was about Saints Row 2022. And yeah, Got Out of Hell. It could have been better. You could have saw more people, such as political leaders, military generals, and presidents, and various crime lords. But they wound up covering the gang thing, but one part of that is that in Saints Row Got Out of Hell, where was the old 1920s to the 1960s gangsters? Where were they? They were not in Got Out of Hell, but but yet well, there was Blackbeard and William Shakespeare. Those are the only two historical figures that ended up down there, from what the lore is saying. And what leads me to believe is that gangsters such as Jaime Weiss, Bestrici, Lucky Luciano, Bugs Moran, Machine Gun Kelly, Bonnie and Clyde, Pretty Boy Floyd, Al Capone, all of those gangsters, of that era weren't featured in Got Out of Hell. In Got Out of Hell, you didn't see them. All it was focusing on was those two. That and Dane Vogel, the DeWinter sisters, and the various enemy factions that the Saints has, from Circulation in Steelport and in Stillwater. But you only saw Toby, Luz, Troy, and Dex. Now, Luz, she was not active. She was not an active threat to the Saints. Sure, she may have chose Angelo Lopez, but she was not an active threat to the Saints. She had no beef with the Saints. If anything, she wanted to squash that beef with the Saints. And Tobias, he had no beef with the Saints at all. I don't get why two characters who had not had beef with the Saints in Saints Row 1 were down there. Luz wanted to not have the fighting going on between the Los Carnales and the Saints. But yet, Tobias, a long-standing ally of the Saints, was down there. He never had beef with the Saints. That don't make any sense. That don't make any sense. If anything, Philippe Loren, Mero, the Lopez brothers, Victor, all the other Vice Kings aside from Benjamin, and all of the leaders of the other gangs being featured in cinematic cutscenes. And also getting to fight them again. But sadly, that was only past tense about the lack of cinematic scenes of the all-out war, and some of them that were on Blackbeard's ship, prisoner, and the silhouettes of them, and yet Killbane screaming in pain, being impaled up his rectum by Vlad the Impaler, which is another historical figure, an ancient historical figure being down there. But the one thing is for certain, which really confuses me, is why is Blackbeard and William Shakespeare in hell? Why? One was a pirate and wanted to go on adventures, and the other was a poet. But the one thing is for certain that confused me. Why was Viola down there? Why was Viola down there with Kiki? Viola turned on the Syndicate to join the Saints. Like, seriously. She turned on the Syndicate to join the Saints, so ergo, she should be separated from her sister, who initially was enemies of the Saints. I just don't know why. And better yet, Where was Donnie? Donnie was on the ship. And if the Earth exploded in Saints Row 4, that means Will and Helmers should be up there in heaven. And what is particularly interesting is that they didn't call the story down the middle. You can't expect to like have one or two chapters and not include all of the world's worst, absolute worst, World War I and World War II evil generals around that time. And the Cold War generals. But yet, the casting calls were already set, and it would have been too complicated. The game wouldn't have not got made. Too many people would be on the project. I don't know, man. I don't know. But yet, too many endings. Too many variations of the endings. One led to Agents of Mayhem. The other led to the Saints Row reboot. That was the Saints Row 2022 reboot. As I did the commentary for that video not too long ago. But Saints Row 2022 had been canonized as the last Volition game. And both Agents of Mayhem and Saints Row 2022, both Saints Row 2022, aka the Saints Row reboot, and the Agents of Mayhem games, both ended up being bad games attached to the Saints Row franchise and the Saints Row logo and the Saints Row name. But Saints Row 5 is not even a thing. Saints Row 1977 would be the prequel to the original Saints Row game, the first one. And what happened was that the sales for Agents of Mayhem didn't even hit at all. Didn't even have good sales in stores. And Saints Row reboot plummeted Volition even further into foreclosure. But they wound up saying, oh, haters gonna hate. And they didn't listen to the consumers. And look where that ended up. Volition millions upon millions of dollars in the hole to Embracer Group. Embracer Group shut them down. Who knows if Volition is going to end up coming back from the dead. Seems like there's a very slim sliver to no chance in Hades for that studio to basically come back from the grave that they dug themselves into when they didn't listen to the fans. Fans walked away with their wallets. They said enough was enough of bad games. They were warned the first time not to make a bad game. They didn't listen. They made God Out of Hell. Then they made Agents of Mayhem. They made Saints Row Reboot. 3 games they made, and that's what killed the studio. Financial losses because of the God Out of Hell game did not become lucrative. Then they went and made Agents of Mayhem, and they didn't make nearly enough of this. And then they had been basically combining what little money that they had from the sales of Get Out of Hell and mixed it with the piss poor sales and the financial kickback from the sales of, or the revenue from, the Agents of Mayhem game, and then right to the Saints Row Reboot. And then boom, they wasted all that kickback money, little kickback money that they got from a couple games and a couple of revenue and royalties from both games. They took both on both ends and wasted all that kickback money on making Saints Row Reboot. And boy, oh boy, have gaming fell so far. You know, I remember back when there was gangster games such as Grand Theft Auto. Grand Theft Auto started pumping games out that were gangster games one year after another, sometimes a year apart from the initial release, development, and the release of another game. Rockstar made GTA, and that was a multi-game franchise. Whereas Saints Row only had, 6 games? If you're counting the 7th spin-off, which was Agents of Mayhem. And they ended up trying to expand on the Red Faction lore. The Red Faction lore. Like with Ultor being the main bad guys in Red Faction, then the EDF, a subsidiary of Old Tour, and boom, try to get into the gangster shit by expanding on the Red Faction lore, which really makes it hard to defend a company that had 2 good gangster games, 1 okay gangster game, and the other games in the series just lost the plot of the franchise in general. 1 or 2 failed spin-offs, and 1 failed reboot later. Volition in the can. And I'm just saying, if you want to make good games, listen to your fan base. Listen to your fan base. That's all you had to do. But anyways, I've had this sickening feeling like it's just not going to get any better. But anyways, that's been my commentary of Saints Row: Gat Out of Hell.